Ignition. Liftoff. Here we are. Hello, folks. We're here today. It's Sunday, February 2nd. And we're here with Magilla39, Redditor Magilla39. Some of you may know of his recent Reddit posts that we're going to kind of be talking a little bit about today here. It's going to be kind of part one of a 5-part series where we're going to go through a little slideshow here that Magilla has prepared. And we're going to have kind of, Magilla39 kind of go through and talk about all the threads that he's pulling together in his post here. And so with this little slideshow, hopefully with all the pictures and visual aids, we're going to be able to really help you guys understand what his Reddit posts were about. And for those of you who didn't get to read them, then you'll get to hear all about it now. So how you doing there, Magilla?
Hello, I'm doing great.
Good. And Mr. Capaldi, how you doing, buddy?
I'm great. Looking forward to listening to more of Magilla than you, though.
Well, I thought I'd talk a little bit at the beginning. So,
okay.
Yeah. So, but here it's obviously Magilla's slideshow. So I'll just be the other monkey here who will just hit the scroll button on here whenever Mr. Magilla asks me to scroll to the next slide. But anyway, so just to say hi real quick before we do.
Hi everybody.
Hey everybody, I see we got Rule out there, Martha, Dark Side of the Moon, Crockett, how you guys doing? Miss Wee Lassie, good to see you.
Linda.
We got Linda K listening out there. And let me see who else we got. We got Jane Sharp, hey, we got Mary.
Jane.
Good. And Shari, how you doing? So want to say hi to everybody. Got a lot of people out there. Sapper Cop, how you doing? Good to see you. So, all right. We're going to move in now to basically a slideshow developed based on the Reddit posts of Magilla39. And we're going to go ahead and allow Magilla39 to kind of take over and kind of explain as we go through the slides here. So if you're ready, Magilla.
All right. Just wanted to get one thing perfectly clear. Gorillas are not monkeys. We're considered great apes. Okay.
Yeah. I'll remove the word other. I'll just be the monkey here.
All right.
There we go. We're all straightened out.
Here in the pet store, that's important to me.
It's absolutely.
All right. So this talk is going to talk about what it's entitled Loof Science, named after the bloodhound Loof, who was brought in to investigate the vicinity of the Avery salvage yard. And we're going to go into the background of bloodhounds and how accurate they are and how they work. And then we'll look closer at the trails and see just how much information is really available from the work of the bloodhounds. Okay?
Right.
Excellent.
So if we move on a little bit.
Yeah, I'm going to scroll here.
It's just if you want to look for my posts, I'm on Reddit. I'm user Magilla39. I like the number 39 because it's the atomic weight of potassium, and bananas have a lot of potassium in them. So.
Right, bananas. Right. Okay. So, fitting. All right.
Your friend underdogs. Okay. This picture here. This is Loof. Loof was a very famous dog. She, I think her full name was Loof Track and Fool.
Mm-hmm.
And, but she just went by Loof most of the time. And She was actually an award-winning dog. The handler who was with Loof during the Avery investigation, Sarah Fowsky, was actually Loof's second handler. Her first handler had retired. So she was a very experienced bloodhound.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And then this is an article that ran about Loof, actually before the Avery time period. This is a few years back, and
suggests the prowess that Loof had.
Yeah, Loof used to do demonstrations for the junior police academies in lots of counties, and here she is with a couple of boys, showing that she's not all work.
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
This first part, we're going to start out. We're going to go into what I call the Loof science, which is just reviewing bloodhounds, a little bit into cadaver dogs, and to understand how precise their work is, and why we should be interested in the tracks that Loof found. So go on.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to start out with a book called Scent and the Scenting Dog. This book is an older book, but has been out for a long time. Some of the science in it is a little bit dated, but in general, it gives you a good introduction to bloodhounds. And the owner, the writer of the book, had raised bloodhounds his whole life.
Mm-hmm.
The original theory of the scent that bloodhounds were coming was that it was coming from shedding dead skin cells. So most of us don't think about it, but the outside of our skin is all dead,
Right.
and then it comes off in flakes, or what they call rafts, and bacteria is starting to decompose the dead skin cells, even on our skin.
Mm-hmm.
And those rafts are also enclosed in vapors that are around our skin uh, from the secretions of our sweat glands.
Mm-hmm.
So
right. Oils, right?
oils, and these things are what the theory is. Believe what the dogs are able to track.
Right.
It's been suggested that the smell actually intensifies after it's initially laid for about 8 hours and stays fairly strong. And then after a while, the colony dies off because of a lack of nutrients.
Right.
So the book says it's typical that after about 38 hours, a trail will tend to go stale. But this depends on the temperature, the moisture, everything under the sun. And
Right.
then there are cases where trails were followed even several weeks after they were laid. So
Sure.
this is just giving you a feel that trails are somewhat durable. And in this case, the bloodhounds weren't actually brought in until a week after Teresa had gone missing. So she
Right.
went missing on Halloween Day, and the bloodhounds weren't brought into the 7th of November.
Right.
And that's 100 and what is it, 144 hours or 168 hours.
Right. Yeah.
So the idea that bloodhounds were getting strong scent from Teresa is questionable based on some of the literature. Okay, so we can go on.
Right.
Another thing is that more detailed investigation of how bloodhounds work, or scent dogs in general, they're not all bloodhounds,
Right.
is that as the foot crushes vegetation on the path, vegetation also is destroyed, at least on the microcellular level.
Mm-hmm.
It's believed there's an initial large release of plant vapor, and then the plant vapor also follows a similar curve of decomposition where it strengthens for a while, plateaus, and then decays.
Right. But it
And
looks like it's much more virulent, I guess, than the human scent does.
right. So there's some interesting experiments were done to understand, were the dogs just tracking the vegetative scent and not discriminating on the human scent?
Right.
And modern bloodhound training has specific exercises to make sure the dog does discriminate for the human scent. And Loof was a very strongly trained dog. The other dog, Raz, was not as trained and experienced.
Right.
Okay, so if we go to the next slide. All right, this might look like, I don't know, something out of Monty Python's Flying Circus. But this gentleman here is Colonel Conrad Most. He was a German colonel during World War I that was in charge of training the war dogs. And he did a series of experiments to determine just exactly what scent dogs are tracking. And he used a couple of apparatus. The first one on the left shows a cable and pulley system he used so he could move a person along a trail without them leaving footprints.
Right.
So this was to test whether skin raft was really where the smell was coming from, because his skin's still exposed. I guess he's still shedding skin cells.
Sorry.
But he's not crushing the ground here. The other strange contraption he made was this wheel with feet on it.
Right.
This is, I think it's in the Bureau of Silly Walks now. And what Conrad found was, so the dog will use the human scent to sort of discriminate between trails, but a lot of the time it's just following the vegetative scent. And also, none of the dogs were able to follow trails of the man suspended in a cable.
Oh, okay.
So he proved that, it isn't coming off your face and hands. It has a lot more to do with your feet.
Yeah, definitely. And it may be that your feet disturbing the vegetation and creating vegetative scent, I think maybe might be a big part of it.
But they actually train dogs to track two people walking together and then follow the scent. Then they split up later.
Right.
And the dogs have to pass that proficiency.
Oh, I see. And find the one. Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But a lot of the times they may be tracking the vegetative scents to when there's only one trail, and then when they come to a fork where the trails split, then they start doing more discriminating.
Right.
Okay. There's also based on what school the tracking and trailing the dog went through, they'll exhibit some different behaviors. So Loof was a tracking dog, and you can normally tell from their posture while they're tracking. Tracking dogs are taught to keep their nose down and to smell the ground continuously.
Mm-hmm.
Tracking dogs give the highest fidelity track of where the person actually walked.
Right.
So you can see this drawing's trying to show you there's a couple of little loops where the dog might have lost the track for a second and then gotten back on it.
Right.
The wind is maybe moving the trail a little bit, but a dog like Loof is going to give you a very high fidelity track, and they're taught not to leave that track on the ground and chase shortcuts.
Oh, right. Okay.
All right, so if we go to a trailing dog, which is the next one, a trailing dog will tend to be smelling what's in front of them, but not necessarily the ground. A well-trained trailing dog will generally follow the trail, but you'll see less fidelity in how they discover the trail.
Yeah, it's a little more erratic, right?
Right, and neither of the bloodhounds here were trailing dogs so much, but the Loof was a tracking dog, and if we get to the third type, this is the other bloodhound that was brought in, even though they're showing a German Shepherd here, I think, maybe.
Yeah.
Or a Malinois or what. This is an air scenting dog. So these dogs are smelling the air and trying to find the strongest scent in the air. So the picture down here shows, you told him to follow the trail, but he smelled this strong scent somewhere else. And
he smelled the end game, right? Yeah, and went right for it, right?
Right. So he's going to pick out where the strongest scent is. And Raz, I think Raz is female too. I think that for some reason, female bloodhounds are easier to train.
Right.
A lot of people don't realize, but bloodhounds are like 140-pound dogs, and I think some people have them confused with some other breeds that think they're smaller. Yeah. So, and the males apparently are a little harder to train.
Yeah, well, could be. Testosterone male dogs might be a little more stubborn.
Well, the testosterone, I think, they've got a solution for that, but let's not get into it.
Well, you know. Easy there, Bob Barker. Anyways.
T-Bricks.
Okay, so if we talk about with sending dogs what their expected accuracy is. So a dog that says that there's no trail away with this scent is giving what we call a true negative if there is no scent away. A dog that's following a trail is giving a true positive if they're actually following the path of the person associated with the scent article or somebody associated with the scent article.
Mm-hmm.
Following a track that isn't associated with the scent article would be a false positive, and not finding a track when one's there would be a false negative. So,
Right.
So there's these cases. This is another book that I got for research, and in this one, the good old girl was named Cleo, I guess Cleopatra.
Right.
And her trainer said that in 225 trials, she failed to find the solution 5 times.
Right.
So her accuracy, I think, if you go to the bottom, it shows it was 97.78%, which is pretty good.
Pretty good. Yeah.
Now, when we talk about the trails in this case, pretty much when they didn't fit the state's theory of the case, they were ignored.
Yeah.
So that's why
Right.
we're going to look back at this as really, and we think Loof was in the class of Cleo here. That Loof's tracks were very likely to be true positives.
Right.
Okay, so the other thing is we had a lot of cadaver dogs with the Great Lake Search and Rescue Squad. Cadaver
Like
dogs have been...
Brutus, right?
Brutus was the lead dog that I guess Julie Kramer was the lead person. And I just want to say that I found research on cadaver dogs, and they typically have a 90% accuracy both for true positives and true negatives.
Mm-hmm.
So we have like 15 cadaver dog alerts. A lot of them were ignored.
Right.
And especially in the state's case.
Yeah.
And there's good research saying out that the false positive rate should have been 10% or less. Okay, so the only reason we went through this was just to say we think the dog track evidence might be important, and the literature supports that.
Right. And the fact that the prosecution was ignoring the cadaver dogs is an interesting point. So certainly.
Right. Now there's another thing, and this is a little controversial in the literature, but Serafowski said she was asked by Sheriff Pagel if Loof would be able to pick up Teresa's scent if it were in a vehicle. And she said that she had done it on several occasions in other cases. So if we just scroll up a little bit more so we can see my 3 illustrations. No, I mean down. I'm sorry.
Oh, down. Sorry.
Yeah.
There you go.
So I've got my solid model of the RAV4 there, and then I've got this computational fluid dynamic model that's just sort of showing that there's forced circulation through the car. All cars are carrying some air out and releasing it from the cab,
right?
Mainly to keep from suffocating you.
Mm-hmm.
You can limit it, but there's always a significant flow.
Right.
And then
so you don't use up all your available oxygen if you have all the windows up, right? Makes sense.
Now the bottom picture is showing how air is moving around the vehicle.
Right.
So the air that you're releasing from the cab, I think, usually goes out through the hood compartment.
Right below the windshield.
Yeah, but
right.
But it gets released from the car. But I just want to say this was a cool picture, so I included it. And also, as the car goes faster, these gases get diluted more and more and harder to smell.
Right.
So if the car is sitting still or moving slowly, we think probably the dog could track it. And there are stories of dogs tracking cars moving up to 30 miles an hour.
Well, okay.
But it definitely, as it's moving faster, the chances of tracking it are lower and lower.
Yeah, you're definitely thinning out what the scent particles that would remain to be detected.
Right. And then also as other cars come by, they're just going to
add to it and
blow it everywhere.
Alter it. And definitely. I see what you mean.
Okay. So if the car's just sort of slowly taxiing around the property, though, it probably leaves a trackable trail.
Sure. If it's slowly going around. Yeah, I would say that's a fair assumption.
But once it starts moving at a good clip, and when we look at the trails, we'll see they like take a right turn onto a major road and then just sort of end.
Right.
It suggests that a car drove away.
Right. Drove away at a higher speed. Sure.
Right. And the dog dogs are all trained to give their negative indication, which means they're not getting any more trail.
Right.
And that would be strongly indicative of a car driving away.
Sure. And it makes sense, folks, that if you're going slow, the particles, the scent particles that you're giving off are coming off and they're collecting in a smaller area. But once you speed up to 40 miles an hour, those particles are coming off of you, but they're being spread out over a much, much larger area, making it a lot more difficult for the dog to detect it. So that's why I get what you're saying there, and that's why it would lead to these main roads and then dissipate. So that's an interesting thing.
Right. So when we look at the trails, we'll be looking for that. So we're going to start out just now that that's about all we're going to do with Loof Science. So we're going to start out looking at some tracks associated with what I think is the bone planting. So we know the bone showed up. If we go back to the calendar slide.
Calendar, sorry, go ahead. Yep.
The rab was found on the 5th, and the bones don't show up in the burn pit until the day of Carmen Boutwell's funeral, the 8th, which some people find interesting. But remember the bloodhounds were brought out on the 7th and the 8th. So if we go here, let's move down.
Mm-hmm.
Track 4 was done on the 7th. So track 4, what they did was track 3, they had gotten to the cul-de-sac and were told not to go. And then later in the day, they tried to continue track 4 from where they were in the cul-de-sac to see where Loof would have gone. And Loof follows the path southeast to the area of the 3 trailers in the deer camp, and actually does a loop around the deer camp. That's what that black and white map is.
Yeah.
And then continues southwest down the trail away from the deer camp. So if we go a little further, I think.
Yeah.
So this was on the 7th. We can see they start Loof off on the 7th, goes and loops around the deer camp, and then down toward the conveyor road.
So I imagine this here is connecting up with this here, right?
Yeah. So now on the 8th, they come back, and Loof does this same track Loof did on track 3 that we'll look at later, where starts out at the maroon van, goes down to the Cuss Road cul-de-sac, comes down the road to the deer camp, loops around the deer camp. But here on the 8th, instead of deciding to go down the southwest road to Conveyor Road,
right down here,
Loof starts tracking back toward Avery's property,
the berm,
and sort of goes nuts in that berm. The handler said that was normally what would happen when she was in 25 feet of the target person. So there's very strong scent in that area. And then she wanted to go over to the burn pit, but Bear was there, so they didn't want to risk Loof and Bear having an encounter.
That's interesting there. because that spot where Loof was there on the berm right there, that would be behind the trailer, behind the garage, and would therefore whoever might have been coming up that way would have been hidden from the patrol car that would have been on the other side of the trailer and garage. So it fits in that way because coming up in from that direction to plant the bones would have kept the person hidden from the patrol car on site.
Right. So we have a bunch of circumstantial evidence here. We got on the 7th, Loof doesn't find this track. On the 8th, not only does Loof find this track, but this track is the strongest scent that Loof tracked the whole period. So
very interesting. Yes.
It's very possible it was laid down the night of the 7th, and that's when the bones were planted. What I think is the bone planter hid back there in the berm, waiting for an opportunity to put the cremains in the burn pit.
Sure. Yeah, I think there may be something to that.
Okay, so we move on. Once again, it's just a close-up of the two loops.
Through the deer camp, right?
Right. So these were drawn by Serafowski.
Right. So this is where the first day on the 7th, where he comes out and he heads south towards Conveyor Road, right? Because that's where the scent was. The strongest scent for him was there, right?
Right.
And I see, and so what he's saying, what McGill is saying, folks, suddenly on the 8th, he ignores that which was the strongest scent then, and suddenly starts following this other track that's strangely strong, considering it hadn't been there before. Well, it wasn't noticed before. So it's interesting that it's that strong. So that's an interesting pickup. Very, very interesting.
All right. So we call that the case of the magically appearing dog track.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we look at track 6, which is that one, one interesting thing I just put in a box was it looks like a different scent shoe was given this time. They used a tennis shoe, and the other time they called it I think Sarah called it a shoe, a black shoe with a heel.
Okay. So like a pump or something. Okay.
All right. I'm not sure.
Potentially, but yeah, okay. Something less tennis shoe like and less spongy and foamy, I would imagine. So
right. So there might have been something different about the scent article. I just want to leave that open.
Sure.
We'll get a little bit more into scent articles. All right. So
okay.
we go on. This is just the write-up of what was happening. A couple interesting things is in the vicinity of the camp, the deer camp, and unfortunately there's 2 spelling errors in this. It says there's a large cat litter pail.
Right.
And unfortunately, actually it says liter pail. It sounds like maybe a pail of beer or something.
Right.
But I read that as litter pail, and I thought it might be like tidy cat litter. I don't know if everybody has cats, but it comes in these big green pails that are handy to use in your garage to store things. And I thought it might have come from Teresa's house and been used to carry the cremains, and then was discarded at the deer camp.
Sure.
This is all just sort of conjecture at this point. There's not a lot of evidence. Another Redditor friend of mine thought it said litter pile and didn't think there was a pail at all, and that pail was a misspelling of pile.
Okay.
And what can you say?
Yeah, right. Everything's a typo. That's the way the state tries to explain. Oh, it's just a typo.
Well, I tried to contact Serafowski, and she didn't respond to my inquiry. But maybe she remembers.
Maybe.
All right. If anybody's seen a picture of a cat litter pail or
let us know. Or
she was thinking it's where they dump the litter behind the house, but and it was a pile of. But,
and the A key is not exactly next to the I key, so there's also that problem with it being pile. But anyway.
Yeah, but Yeah, that'd make it more pale, right?
Well, it's the A key and the I key aren't really close to each other. So that would suggest to me they meant, well, I don't know what they might have meant, because obviously pale would have been PA. Well, maybe they don't know how to spell pale. Who knows?
I will say
it's such a train wreck, I guess. What are you going to do?
I will say I've reviewed a lot of the dog reports and from other cases now, and Sarah Fauski's reports were the best reports of any of the ones I reviewed. Right. She did misspell a few words, but she gave very good descriptions. She gave satellite maps. She drew the trails in, and we'll go through another dog report a little bit later where you'll realize that a couple misspelled words is not so bad.
Yeah, no worries.
All right, going down. This picture, and maybe we can. So the one on the bottom is the trail map that Sarah Fauski provided, and this top picture is actually from the flyover. I think flyover on the day of the Cuss Road incident, so it's like the 7th. And right. the terrain doesn't match Sarah's map at all. You can see that the pond up by the deer camp is a different shape, and that main pond that she shows the dog going in twice is about the same shape, but her satellite photo wasn't current, and I've done some comparing of the deer campgrounds, and the deer campgrounds are quite changed from what she drew on.
Right.
So there's some inaccuracies even in her even depiction of the deer campground.
Right. And so this would mean, so the dog, so Loof was tracking that thing. So you understand Loof was hitting on the berm right here, folks. This is where Loof on the 8th was going nuts. This is Stephen Avery's trailer and garage right here. And their cop that would have been monitoring everything would have been right over here. And would have not seen a thing happening here.
Also, there's a lot of trees right there to hide behind.
True. Around that berm there is a lot of shrubbery, a lot of big bushes, and a lot of, absolutely.
So if you scroll down there, you can see now that double arrow that sort of shows the whole thing attacking the burn pit, that's drawn by Sarah Faust. So.
Okay. That's the dog handler, right?
Yeah. So that's all evidence from long ago. Now, so I as I was going through this, I really thought this was the first one that really struck me as showing the bone planting. And I was wondering who it could be, and then it hit me that 2 people were living in the home, which would be swimming in Teresa's scent.
Right.
Scott and Ryan.
Right.
And that got me into looking at ways these tracks. Now, first of all, these tracks make no sense for Teresa. They're a week old. Why would Teresa be hiding behind Avery's house trying to attack the burn pit? Some of the other tracks make less sense. It would have Teresa planting her own car in the back of the Avery property. So it doesn't make sense it's Teresa. And I started developing a theory I call human scent transfer.
Right.
And then I started researching to see if I could find literature to back up human scent transfer. And I found 3 other mechanisms that also explain it in the literature. So, and we'll get into some of that.
Right.
The biggest one is scent article contamination.
Okay. Yep. And all right.
Okay, so that
part 2.
Part 2. So the first part, we learned quite a bit about bloodhounds from the literature, how accurate they should be, the different styles of training, and how the dog behaves on the trail. And then we took one case, the trails that seemed to indicate the bone planting, and broke it down so you sort of get a feeling for that. This one, we're going to look a lot more at track 1 and And also, it brings us to the Ryan Kilgus map. So here's track 1. So when I looked at track 1, it seemed to me that 1 or 2 people were trying to leave the location of the RAV4 at the top, where the trail started. You scroll.
Oh, I'll back up a little.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, so you can see that this trail actually starts right at the RAV4.
Sure.
Dog immediately jumps over this berm. But you see the track traces back to here. So there, it looks like there's actually 2 trails, maybe 2 people leaving there.
Right.
Now
it loops back around down here, obviously.
Yeah, so location A was of interest to me. So there's a trail in there that's wide enough for a car to go, and actually at location A, where the 2 trails cross there, there's space to park a car. So what I was thinking was the 2 people are leaving the RAV4. They're going to get their car that was hidden with woods cover, and then it looks like they're going to leave the property. Right?
Yeah.
And then if we scroll down a little bit, box C is actually around Wilmer
Siebert.
Oh, Siebert. This is his place.
Wilmer Siebert's house.
Ah.
So there they come in, drive by his house.
One came out, went this way, and decided to come back.
Yeah, and it looks like they're coming back from planning the RAV4.
Right.
But a couple. So, Loof is a dog that gives high fidelity tracks, though.
Right. Very well established, high prowess.
Yeah. So there were a couple of things in here I called strange loops. So we'll start with the first theory. I think it's one of 2 things. It's either somebody bringing somebody back to go look at the RAV4 the back way and hiding their car in the woods, or the guys who planted the car leaving. It's one of those.
Yeah. Right.
You can see him like driving to where the Jeep is and then on foot going up to where the RAV4 is. But these 2 loops don't seem to fit those scenarios. And right. My question is Loof just sort of wandering around a couple times, which isn't supposed to be how well-trained tracking dogs act. So I decided to look at locations B and C a little more.
Right.
So if we look, I pulled up another satellite picture and got closer. Now this satellite picture is from Google Earth, and it looks like, unfortunately, we managed to cover up the date and time, but it's actually from 2004, I think. Oh, there it is. Yeah.
It's right here. Yeah. 12/31/2004.
So this was the closest picture I could get in time to when the incident was. The interesting thing about B is there's a path off to the right, and then there's a perfect little location to park a car.
Yeah.
So, and if you look at the Loof's track, it looks like Loof's walking around a place about the size of a car.
Right. It's a small one. Right. If we go up here.
Yeah, there's that little.
It's a very small loop. Yeah.
Right, like 2 people maybe wandering around a car.
In fact, here looks like that little track that we see in the picture. It's covered a little bit by her track that she drew, but I think you can see it right there.
Yeah, and you have to remember that her satellite photos is not even as accurate as mine. So.
Right.
Okay, so the first one, it looks like maybe there was an outing where somebody just sort of parked there.
Yeah.
And maybe they wandered around C, which is Wilmer Siemert's house. Now, when we look at C, we see a bunch of woods, right?
Yeah.
So why would somebody be wandering in a circle around Wilmer's house in the woods?
Yeah.
So we go on. That was a puzzle to me. And
that is a puzzle, yeah.
So I looked in closer, and not sure when this was from. This is from 2011, when the woods had thinned out. One of the things I was struck by was there's a lot of old cars in Wilmer Siemert's yard, which suggests that he's a little bit of a mechanic, which might make his idea of the car more reliable.
Right.
But still, I didn't understand why they'd walk around this house. So if we go down a little bit, I decided to zoom out. And when I zoomed out and looked up Jamba Creek Road, I saw this big horseshoe driveway. And that reminded me of something.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go down to the next slide, there's a zoom in of the horseshoe driveway.
Right.
And we go down again. And there's like half a horseshoe driveway in the Ryan Hilligus map that he gave the police, where he found a condom, he says.
Oh. Okay.
Okay, and this was
all right. That's interesting.
He was out searching on the 7th. Now, before we get off of that, I'm not sure this is the right house. I looked at all the houses. He says it's the first house on Jamba Creek, and I looked at all the houses, and none of them have a garage and house like that. So I'm not sure it's the right house, but here's Ryan saying that they were searching around houses on Jamba Creek Road.
Mm-hmm.
And what is Wilmer's house? Well, it's a house right there on Jamba Creek Road.
Right.
So what I'm thinking is the Ryden Kilgus group was circling houses, and Wilmer's was one of them.
Yeah, that could very well be.
Okay, so the interesting thing is that it's very likely that Loof's tracks are showing something important.
Right.
Loof isn't just wandering around in circles trying to pick the trail up again.
Sure.
That's not what he's trying to do.
Yeah. If Ryan was living at Teresa's, Loof may have been picking up Teresa's scent from him himself, from walking around in her house where her scent was. I mean, I can see that being rationally possible.
Right. So that was my first theory. I called that the human scent transfer mechanism. Would just be, he's walking barefoot on her floors that have her foot oils on them, and who knows what he was doing there. I started getting this bad idea he might be sleeping in her bed, which was starting to bother me.
That wouldn't surprise me.
I don't think we have any evidence of that.
Don't have any evidence of it, but it wouldn't surprise me because there is evidence of him that he was really pining for Teresa, that he wasn't dealing with the fact that she was moving on from him. It seems to be there's enough out there to suggest that he wasn't dealing with it very well.
Okay, so
but that's not proof.
This is, I think, it's the end of part 2 here. So the one question is, did somebody in that search party walk around Wilmer's property prior to the dog track on 11/7?
Right.
Now, we do find out the search party was out there on 11/7, and they handed in a map saying they were searching on Jamba Creek Road houses. And then the other one is the track for the planning. Could it be somebody taking somebody to see the RAV4, or is it the two people escaping from planting the RAV4?
Right.
And then is this providing proof of a human scent transfer mechanism? So on Reddit, I got people coming back saying, oh, yeah, this is malarkey, human scent transfer. You find me where the literature says that. So I went out and I started looking into literature, and lo and behold, I found an FBI article that says human scent is easily transferred from one object to another, so the relationships between objects and people are sometimes unknowingly established. Identifying someone's scent at a crime scene is not an indication of complicity. It simply establishes a direct or indirect relation to the scene.
Right.
So the FBI is saying human scent transfer happens all the time. Happens easily.
Sure.
They give this reference to Ruddy 2002, where someone's scent was actually transferred to a woman's neck when she was strangled, and it was a person that had encountered the strangler. It wasn't the actual strangler.
Wow.
So they say, first knowing that cellular matter can be transferred, a suspect identification made by scent discriminating canine only establishes some form of relationship. You still need to follow up and verify with an investigator.
Right. Yes.
Okay, so the idea that it's only Teresa leaving tracks. I'm still in. I'm at this point in time. I started researching that even deeper.
Right.
I found that it's supporting. So my thoughts at the time were it would take close contact between items containing scent items like rafts of dead skin or sweat and oil,
Right.
and that gets transferred to objects, and then it gets transferred back to the objects a person's wearing or to that person.
Right.
And then I have a waft of smoke here to just
Yeah.
provide you the general feeling that
I was gonna say this guy kind of looks like Randy from My Name Is Earl, but anyways,
that's Sarah. So
it's Sarah. Oh,
yeah,
so
that wasn't very nice. Now
I'm sorry. It's the hat. Anyway,
well, I hear that bloodhounds are a lot of work. So
are they? Oh well.
yeah, I think she gave up.
Looks like a good pup though. He looks like a good dog. She looks like a good dog.
She was a superstar. Okay, so we'll get to 3 here now. So that all got me thinking, well, these trails seem to be indicating some bad things were going on, and it seems to be pointing back to the scent article collected from Teresa's house. But it also says that if it was somebody like Ryan at Teresa's house, he had to actually know about it being a good idea to go over the vicinity of Avery salvage yard before the 3rd, before he heard it from police. Because I think that would have been too late for him to get that stuff all over there. I mean, the night of the 3rd, we think he was maybe walking up to Stephen's trailer from the Cuss Road cul-de-sac.
Right.
So my question to myself was, what did he know just from the materials that would have been in Teresa's car? Now, we don't have the exact stuff that was in the car because that was destroyed by the perpetrator, but these are examples of things that she had in the car before. So a couple things here. If you just start on the top there, what the first red box, I just want to go through. A lot of it's redacted, but that's saying she would have had their address, their phone number, their count number. She would have made notes on the side as to what happened for them.
Mm-hmm.
If we go down a little bit more, one of the things we'll see on the Barbara Jonda order was she was asked to get the VIN number, so she would have wrote the VIN number down on this sheet of paper.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if she had done hustle shots, she would have recorded the hustle shots on this piece of paper.
Right.
The second one, this was actually Auto Trader printing out what the information was that should have been provided to her for the Barbara Jonda car.
Beyonda, right.
And you see, she got a phone number, she's got an address, she has the description of the car. So she would have had all that information.
It's a brilliant idea that Avery had, didn't he? To call Auto Trader when he wanted to kill Teresa instead of calling her phone directly because he had her cell phone number to call her directly for a hustle shot. I mean, it's interesting that he went and created all of this paper trail to help drag him down. Anyways, sorry, I'm being a little sarcastic.
I actually don't think that's a good idea at all, dude. I don't think that's a very good idea if that's really what you want to do. But anyway.
I'm saying that it's interesting that somebody would reason that Stephen would go and create all this paper trail if in fact he was wanting to kill Teresa, that he would call Auto Trader, get all this paper trail created. You know what I mean? You see what I mean? But anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm only a gorilla, but I think that was sarcasm, Paul.
I think so.
Anyway. So I just think it's interesting, though. So
all right, we scroll down a little bit to the next thing that would have been in the car. Here's another example where she had done a hustle shot for Steve Avery and just wrote Steve Avery done.
Right.
So she was, and then if we go on, this is her day planner sheet. There really was no information on the day planner sheet that would have been useful to the perpetrator to figure out what she'd done that day. I think the Trader Sheboygan block was just like a recurring appointment. That's just when she planned to do that stuff. And none of the information on there is about the visit she made.
Right.
I think she would have had some maps with her, but...
Here's the note she made for Steve in Sheboygan, though.
Yeah, and I think I got that partially redacted, but she does have the 2 car types and things.
Right, yep.
Now, where we start getting to more interesting stuff is she had her Canon PowerShot, and one of the nice features about this was it had a picture review on a very small screen. I think probably this image is higher resolution than this camera actually supported, but
are you suggesting that the advertisers have slipped in something to make it seem better than it is?
The later version of the camera, that preview screen is a touch screen and it takes up the whole back of the camera. So. The one nice thing is she could have sat there and looked at her compact flash cards and reviewed her photos.
Right.
And so could the perpetrator. So the actual order the photos were taken that day would have been shown by the photos for the camera. And probably the flash card that was in it was the one she was using.
Right.
So from that, she would have known the order of the visits and who the last visit was. And who the addresses were. Now, she also had this thing called a Zyre 31 PDA. And I can't for the life of me figure out why she wanted one of those things. I had a PDA once, and it ended up being shelfware for me. But this thing also had she was a photographer, and it had an app called Palm One Photos. And it also had a slot for memory cards, and you could actually save photos onto the Palm One, and you could preview photos with the Palm One screen. So she might have been doing that. It had a task list. It had a few other things in it, but there might have been some useful information. It could keep, her contacts and phone numbers of people. But I think her phone could probably do that. But we're really not sure why she had this thing. Maybe she didn't. It might have had some pictures of some people that didn't want to be on it, because it could store photos.
Right.
Okay, so if we go on, what else would they have known? So we start out with this is from a scene in Making a Murder that was taken. I think this is them meeting before the search on one day. I think it's November 7th. We see Mike, Ryan, and one of Teresa's girlfriends standing around, and they're looking at this big old piece of corrugated cardboard leaning up against a maroon car.
Right.
Bottom. And there's something on there that if you, for the people who used to look at old satellite maps, I think one of the satellite map vendors provided satellite maps in that color.
Okay.
Okay, so if we go down a little bit, I'll blow that up. So this on TikTok Manitowoc, we started calling this the mapstrosity. And there's a characteristic dark spot in the middle, sort of in the shape of a backwards 7.
Okay, here.
Yeah, so I tried to do a perspective transform on it. So if you go to the next slide. Yeah, so I was able to do a pretty good perspective slide, and that seems to be a very significant characteristic of that map, and it's taken up about, I don't know, at least a third, maybe a little more than maybe 40% of the size of that map.
Right.
And I think that map's 22 inches by, I think it's actually 17 inches by 22 inches. I think it's made up of 4 sheets of paper.
Okay.
So I started looking at satellite photos of the same vintage, and I identified the backwards 7.
Oh, yeah. That would seem to... Yeah.
Okay. So this satellite photo is, I think, from April 2000. And you can see that this is it's almost centered on the Avery property, and
Right.
it's giving the vicinity of the Avery property, and
Yeah.
it's of course blown up a lot more than this is on our screen.
Yeah, certainly.
So if we go to the next slide, this is an estimate of what I think he could see on there. And what we can see is that he couldn't have seen the lanes on the salvage yard or individual cars, but he can see
Right.
the Cuss Road cul-de-sac. He can see the deer camp. He can see
Right.
at least the southwest pass to the deer camp. He can see the road in from Jamba Creek Road
Right.
past Wilmer's.
Over here.
He can see the conveyor road very clearly.
Right.
So, and we also, from the dog scent trail, we suspected his search party was searching up and down Jamba Creek Road, including the vicinity of Wilmer's. So
there's the horseshoe driveway there.
Right. All looking very familiar. So this slide just basically says what I said when we were looking at the picture.
Right.
Okay, now in pretrial testimony, they asked Ryan, well, where did your search party search? And they handed him a satellite map, not the one he was using. And he drew these X's and these red boxes, and you can see his initials up there in the upper right-hand corner, RH.
Yeah.
And there's testimony to go with this. And here he's saying, we were searching this empty field along Avery Road, nowhere near the quarry, nowhere near where the RAV4 was found.
Right.
Now, if you go further, I found the actual trial exhibit. This is the whole trial exhibit with all of his markings on it. You can see the backward 7 in it.
Yeah.
And so he's saying that pretty much they searched along State Highway 147. He doesn't show any activity on Jamba Creek Road going south. He doesn't show any activity back there by Wilmer's house.
Right.
So I think this is evidence of him hiding what they did.
Sure. Yeah, it's a little odd because you did show something earlier where he was basically saying they were on Jumbo Creek Road.
Right, that map he
So
turned in.
for him to not show that it's a little odd.
Yeah, so maybe he's saying it's the first house way up there, but that house doesn't match his map either. So.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it strikes me as disingenuous. That's one of my favorite words.
All right. So, or might not be fully forthcoming. Or perhaps he enrolled in a misinformation campaign.
Yeah, that's true. Or somebody was going to break his legs if he told the truth. I don't know, something.
Yeah, well, or maybe he just forgot because he never slept,
or they were going to release pictures from that party he went to. Anyway, no.
Okay. All right, so we're going to go through at this point, we're going to go through the Loof tracks one by one, and I've got them arranged in the order I think that's chronological. So this is Loof track 3, I think.
Oh, top there.
It goes from, this is where they start at the van. He goes along.
On Cuss Road?
Well, first he gets repelled
starting here. Okay.
Yeah, he gets repelled by bear, goes by the south door in the trailer, wants to go in, and then goes up Cuss Road to the cul-de-sac.
Right.
And, some people are saying, well, that shows that Teresa went to the car door. But what I think is really going on here is this is Ryan starting at the cul-de-sac, going down Cuss Road, leaving a car partially down, being seen by Steven driving away, coming down on foot after he sees Steven leave. He's the one walking across, checking out how he can get in the garage. He's the one checking if he can get in the trailer. and may have forced his way into the south door of the trailer. So I think that's the taillights Stephen Avery report, and I think
Right.
I think that's what Zellner was thinking when she wrote so much about that incident.
Right.
Now that's the track where they stop him in the cul-de-sac and don't let Loof go further
Any further? Right. Okay.
because
So yeah, he gets stopped right here, and they won't let him go any further. So that's okay.
Right.
So everybody understands, right? There we go.
But that leg of the trail seems that. This track 4 is when they go back after the all clear's called, and they say that everything they were doing for a day and a half was, or actually it's just most of the 7th, I think. Didn't matter. I think they still were keeping Loof away, but they let Loof start a trail down here closer to the deer camp. This is the one where Loof circles the deer camp and then goes down to the conveyor road. So I think from the night of the 3rd, either Ryan on foot goes down this path and scouts out the deer camp,
Right.
or he drives the RAV4 back this way and maybe got out on foot and scouted out the deer camp. I don't think he drove the RAV4 around the deer camp.
Right.
Now, down there at the conveyor road, there's this area where we get all these cadaver dog alerts.
Right.
And there's 2 paths in on the conveyor road. And so there's the top, let's call them the top and bottom, the way this is going. So the top path is blocked by the red Pinto.
Right.
And the bottom path is blocked by a bunch of cars, but further down.
Further down, okay.
So what I think is they try to bring the RAV4 in the way of this Pinto, which is where all these alerts are. And they were stopped by the Pinto. I think they opened the RAV4. They might have tried to nudge the Pinto out of the way and damage the RAV4.
Yeah.
Might not have. But I don't think they got around the Pinto where it was seen and photographed.
Right.
Okay, so there's a fella Redditor that's really good with the flyover video that I call Captain Flyover, and he got me this capture. So he thinks what they did after they were stopped at the Pinto and got out.
Went off road, maybe.
They backtracked and then went, yeah, and I think that area was muddy at that time, so that's probably where the mud got thrown up on the sides of the RAV4s, because the road was blocked by this huge school of cars, but
yeah,
it was this muddy path.
Yeah, you can see that road restarts over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're stopped by the Pinto. Some event occurs there. It might be an accident. Might be they just get out and look around. They backtrack, I think. They go up the other conveyor lane, and they go down toward the pond with that right turn.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's why Zellner's making a big deal out the red Pinto and maybe wanting to examine the car to see if the red Pinto matches.
Right.
Now, there's this section of Loof Track 6 that shows that path that going down from Conveyor Road down to where the Pinto is.
Right.
So they brought Loof across the yard, and then Loof thought she had a trail, backtracked on it, and then went down and picked up this leg.
Right.
Now, I think it's possible they circled the pond, but Loof's track doesn't show that because of course the car's pointed in the other direction.
Right.
Which would have been like looping around the pond and coming back. But I think that's probably the RAV4 moving very slowly through the yard. Now, we talked about this one is Loof Track 1.
Right. This is right.
So this is, I think that's either they're coming away from the planted RAV4, getting to the car they hid in the woods and leaving, or what they did was the RAV4 was brought around to probably the red Pinto. The white Jeep was parked in the woods. and then they went together on foot. There are some Loof tracks that actually cross this woods to the conveyor road. They go plant the car together and come back to the White Jeep to leave.
Right.
And then we have our two strange loops, which we think are showing a trip where they just park shortly in there, and one where maybe they were on a car and just going house to house, and they weren't actually searching the whole Jamba Creek road. They were just searching around the houses.
Right.
Okay, this is track 5 and 6. Before we looked at track 4 and 6. 4 was where they, but this is track 5. They tried to recreate track 3, but they let Loof loose in the cul-de-sac, and Loof on the 7th doesn't go anywhere from there. Which gives the end of trail signal without even going on the road toward the deer camp.
Right.
But lo and behold, well, on 11/8 they find the track, but
Right, the track that leads up to the back of Steven's trailer. Right.
Right,
Here,
and
right.
I think that was done the night of 11/7. So I think that day all of a sudden it breaks through, and there's very strong scent down there in that berm area. And
right, that had gone previously undetected. Right.
yeah, and they bring cadaver dogs there, and they alert there too. So
yeah.
Okay, we're gonna bring in Raz now. Now Raz is Raz is the other female bloodhound. And she was in the canine squad of Kakana. And she was brought in to try to duplicate Loose Trail.
Mm-hmm.
And this is on the Ace. So,
but she's actually an air tracking dog, which is a little different.
We learned that from the way she goes. So,
right.
All right. So she does a perimeter search. She's put in her harness. Raz immediately took a track going into the backyard behind the Avery's garage into the fence line, running back and forth along the fence line for several minutes before working her way west toward the gravel pits. So if we look at Loof's track, what she's doing is she's coming from where Teresa was. She's coming from Teresa's car and just runs straight to where that berm is and just goes crazy.
Right.
And then she starts running across the gravel pit toward the deer camp.
Right.
Okay. All right. So from here, she headed down a road, 2 city blocks. So she runs 2 city blocks in the wrong direction. She turns around, comes back, starts working the back fence line. From here, she jumped the fence, went down to the junkyard for a little while. And she ends up going over the cul-de-sac, says there's nothing further that way, comes back to the gravel pit area, proceeds to take. Now, there is something in here about, but she goes to Steven's back door.
Right.
Oh.
Is that next?
No, let's back up. I think I missed something. I'm pretty sure she goes to the deer camp. I can't remember when. It's just like a half a sentence. And it's the one where she ends up on the cul-de-sac.
Right. Up to a cul-de-sac and gave me a negative.
Yes.
Took me back to the gravel pit area.
The trailers west of the property. There it is. So she runs to the trailers west of the property, which is the deer camp, out to a cul-de-sac, gave me a negative, down to the gravel pit. I mean, so you can see Raz is not the same type of training. Raz has a good nose, air scent dog.
Right.
running around the same areas, but it's not given a high fidelity track.
Right.
But Raz does go absolutely nuts in the berm.
In the berm area. Right.
Right. All right. So the other thing Raz tells us is from where Teresa was last seen with her car, Raz ran right to that fence line in that berm. So that was in the air. That was the strongest scent in the air that day.
Right.
And then Raz does go up to the Avery trailer, which suggests maybe somebody was trying to break into the Avery trailer.
Right.
And we can just see from Raz's general behavior that she's
He had to get in there somehow.
Yeah.
I guess. Or possibly anyway. That could be one way it happened.
They had to get blood too.
So
all right.
Is that this
one? So now Raz's report's a little harder to follow, and there are no maps, but basically confirmed track 6. All right, now track 7 is interesting. This one goes from the conveyor road straight back into Redont Quarry. And then there's the second part of it on the next page, where it goes out and there's this strange loop there right at the entrance to the Redont Quarry. And I think that's where cars park.
Oh, okay, right up here, you mean?
Yeah, and then they do turn and go down toward the county quarry.
Right.
Or, so what I think is they probably came in, parked the car, walked in this way, then walked out this way to the car and drove back down. And I think it probably has to do with the bone planting incident.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we look, this one's showing that the county quarries were where the other bones were found.
The cadaver dog alerts, right?
Yeah. 15 and then pelvic bones down there.
Yeah, that is interesting. They're hitting over there in Manitowoc County gravel pit.
Well, they didn't bring the scent dogs down there.
Right. But these are cadaver dogs, right? Because that's what it's
they
saying.
brought cadaver dogs and they alerted. And there were
scent dogs, yeah. I just think it's interesting that cadaver dogs hit there, so that's interesting.
Now, also in the course of my research, I found out there was a lot of interesting things they could have done with the bloodhounds that they didn't. One thing is the bloodhound can actually be given a car seat as a scent article and ask it to just show me what the driver did after they got out of that car seat.
Right.
If they had done that to the RAV4, not knowing who the scent article was from, it would have shown the path. If the path was a walk back to Avery's house, or if the path was a jump over that berm, which I'm pretty sure it was a jump over that berm, that would have been very interesting to do. There's also a way, if you think you know a trail, but you don't know who did that trail, you can let the dog pick the scent up from the trail and follow it.
Right.
So the only type of work they did on this case was scent articles they had gotten from Teresa's house.
Right.
Okay, so this next one is going to cover. It's going to cover other theories of how this scent article could have the dogs tracking someone other than Teresa. And the big one is the contaminated scent article. I found a book that had a lot of write-ups about contaminated scent articles. Right. So if we look at the tracks now, we have a theory of all the tracks. The tracks seem to be very consistent with the theory of the defense, that somebody planted the RAV4, that somebody planted the bones, that somebody broke into Stevens' trailer, that somebody was wandering around Redont Quarry and came up from the county quarry. And the tracks don't really play with the state's theory at all, and that's why the state ignored the tracks.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so if we go down, I'm just usually show that slide as a summary of all the tracks. So I found this book on the Coker method. I think it's pronounced Coker.
Mhm.
We got that's a
Look at that
puppy.
pup. Yeah, he's a good looking pup.
Yeah,
Look at those paws, man. Anyway.
that's going to become a bloodhound. Okay, so in the Coker method, he spends an entire chapter talking about scent article collection. Now, the scent article was collected by a member of the Calumet Sheriff's Office and brought over to the command post in a plastic bag, and it was collected the morning of the 7th. But he's going to talk about making sure you pick up a good scent article and making sure that the dog handler supervises the picking up of the scent article so that you don't pick up a contaminated scent article.
Right.
Because almost all articles are contaminated, and you want to look for an article that you think wasn't.
The least contaminated, right.
Right. So
Right.
as we go down, he says, unfortunately, it's second nature for people to touch things.
Right.
You ask him, anyone touched this? Everybody says, no, we didn't touch that. So he talks about looking for something that's sort of hidden away or squirreled away so that you know that it hasn't been out in the open and people have been touching it. So here we got 2 pairs of her shoes, her tennis shoes and some pair of black shoes with heels. Not like high heels, I think. They just had a heel.
Sure.
And
Like
they
a
were
pump or
collected.
something, maybe. Yeah.
Right. They're probably just sitting in her front hallway, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these precautions, he says, to take when selecting a scent article weren't taken. So it's very likely the scent articles were contaminated by the other people in the house.
Sure.
Okay, so he's talking about looking for secondary locations, secondary positions. Behind and under the dressers is a good place because that kept it from getting contaminated.
Right.
All right. Now the other thing he has is an entire chapter, chapter 39, which is great because that there's a lot of potassium in bananas. Okay, he's talking about an entire chapter. What do you do if your scent article is contaminated? And he says this happens all the time. We have a contaminated scent article, but if we know who contaminated it, if they're there when you tell the dog to go find, the dog will ignore the scent of the
Ignore
person.
their scent. Okay, makes sense.
Okay. So if Ryan had helped, he was being the eager beaver. If he had helped, his scent could have been ruled out, and maybe no trails would have been found.
Right.
It's interesting. There's also a lot of exercises they go through specifically to handle contaminated scent articles. And they even
in training, you mean? In training the dogs, you mean?
Yes.
Right?
Even if the article's contaminated with the scent of the same person, but or they're searching through some place that just says the person scent everywhere, that they train the dog to find the strongest scent.
Right.
Okay, so here's some description of the pickup. This is from Sarah's report. Sheriff Pagel did have 2 pairs of shoes that belonged to Teresa Hallbach. Both were bagged separately in plastic bags. Sarah says she placed sterile gauze in the toes of all the shoes and removed the insole from a black pair of heeled shoes. This was the first scent object. The second one was a tennis shoe.
Right.
The toe area was cut off and placed in a plastic bag with sterile gauze. The shoes were then secured in my personal vehicle. So the one thing you see is that Sarah's trained to handle these scent articles carefully.
Yes.
But she didn't pick up the scent article from the house. It was not picked up under a good protocol. And she has no idea what happened to it at the house.
Right.
And it was picked up by somebody who wasn't trained in scent dog tracking.
Sure.
Okay, so we go a little lower.
We know.
And this is
all tuckered out.
This is a pause in the investigation, I think.
Yeah. The true investigation. Oh yes, the true investigation continues. A brief nap. There you go.
It's like Erekose.
Hey, on the weekends I get my naps in. I love them.
Yes.
Yes. Too bad we have to break our naps up with waiting periods.
Right.
Oh,
We gotta support Stephen and Brendan sometimes.
yeah. Okay. So here. All right. This has been a marathon session, and I apologize, but we're
Well,
getting.
we are almost done, so bear with us, folks.
Okay.
It's been brilliant so far.
We're really
It has.
going.
We've been at 80 people watching the whole time, so you're brilliant, dude.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, we're going to go through a little bit more of scent transfer and scent article contamination, and another vector of scent article contamination, Mila the cat. Okay, so here's a cat rubbing her body on a shoe.
Right.
This is what we call the cat-to-shoe scent transfer vector. You can see the scent glands on the side of the cat's face, and the shoe is being rubbed.
Right.
Okay,
it's
so
like the way cats mark things and that sort of stuff.
Right. So as we've discussed, we think the trail that we're following is either coming from the RAV4 passing by slowly with its ventilation system forcing air with scent out of the car. If it starts driving too fast, we lose the track and the dog signals the track's ended. Or it could be the killer who's contaminated with Teresa's scent due to repeated intimate contact with Teresa's belongings.
Right.
Also, like if the killer goes and showers and doesn't go back to Teresa's, he's not going to carry the scent anymore. So I'm looking for. So I'm always of the working theories who did this. Let's say this was Bobby who did it. Why is he carrying Teresa's scent for a week? Maybe he doesn't shower. I don't know. He claims to shower. The showers seem pretty short.
Very short.
But I think you have to have repeated contact. You're not going to be laying these trails down just by a single contact. And then the policeman who picked up the shoes, I don't think he's contacted the shoes long enough to be laying down its scent.
Right.
The other is the killer could have contaminated the scent article in Teresa's house.
Yes.
So his scent could be on the shoes. Teresa's scent could be on him. Or the other source we think is the RAV4 forcing air out. Now, so those are two vectors. Now we got a third vector, I think, is Teresa's cat, Mila. So with Mila, I think Mila's scent is on the shoes and Mila's scent could be on the killer, Ryan. And then it's a common scent and it would be something tracked. So I wanted to investigate that theory. So let's go down a little further. Where I picked this up is there's an article and Ryan gets interviewed on Madison.com. And Ryan says that it was some comfort, he said, to be surrounded by his good friend's belongings, her photographs. And then he said, and her cat, Mila. And I had not really known that Teresa had a cat named Mila. I guess the name of the cat doesn't matter so much, but that really jumped out at me that she had a cat.
Right.
And it sort of hit me in the nose like a tabby's claw.
Yeah, so like that.
Gorillas don't like tabby's claws in their nose.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so
they probably peel the tabby like a banana. Anyway,
we like kittens, but not on our nose.
Yeah,
okay,
right.
So I looked for an expert in how cats use scent. I think we sort of know this, but this is an expert, Pam Johnson Bennett. She knows that cats have scent glands on their paws, pads, their cheeks, their lips, their forehead, their flanks, their tail, and there are also two little anal glands on each side of their rectum that they use to put a strong smell on their stool.
Nice.
All right. Because the cat poo-poo didn't smell bad enough all by itself.
Right, that's definitely right. Hey,
all right,
so
and
it could always be improved, right? Anyways.
And then some of these scent glands say, this is my territory and it's safe. And some of these scent glands say quite the opposite.
Right.
Like, I don't like this place. And I don't
or be wary. Right. Yeah.
Okay, so, and also being amongst their scent is self-soothing. I mean, this woman has studied, cats rubbing things more than I'm really interested in. So if we go down, here's what I call the cat to dog's scent transfer vector.
Yeah.
Here's the dog being marked by the cat. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to do was, well, can a dog track a cat's scent? So I found this book, and it turns out there's a whole group of dogs that do nothing but rescue lost pets. And it turns out that they call missing animal response dogs, MARS, and they
Right.
require some special training because cats can climb trees.
Right.
Usually dogs don't think, oh, I better look up that tree.
Right.
The cat's just up the tree mewing. And
Right.
so that's one of the training exercises to teach them to look up for a scent. Okay, so in general, I'll just say the dogs actually find it easy to find cats. Cats, even though they're quick and can sort of get away for a little while, they have no stamina, and they tend not to run far from their homes.
Right.
Also, they go around marking everything, so it's not just footsteps.
Right. They leave a trail. Right.
Yeah.
To follow. Right.
And dogs have no trouble finding it at all.
Right.
Okay, so those are all the theories we have on how the scent article, it could have had Mila's smell, and so did Ryan. Could have had Ryan's smell, and it could have had Teresa's smell, and so did Ryan.
Yeah.
Okay, all of those still say, it all points back, and I keep saying Ryan, it could be Scott.
Right.
It could be, it might be people just visiting the house, but I tend to think the two people living in the house, especially since Ryan moved in on the 3rd, and they picked it up on the 7th. So it's 4 days he's been in there.
Right.
And that's my best theory on how the article got contaminated. So this just giving a summary. So now when we look at this tracks, we have a theory of what each track is.
Right.
We got Stephen seeing the taillights, the Cuss Road assault on Stephen's house. Then we got the bone planting coming from the deer camp. We got the RAV4 getting planted along with Conveyor Road. We got either somebody being brought to see the RAV4 on the 4th, or the people escaping from the RAV4, confirming Wilmer Siemert's story. And then we also see that somebody came up from the county quarry and went toward the Conveyor Road from the county quarry through the Redonk quarry.
Right.
Okay. That's just basically saying what I just said. Those are the theory of the tracks. Then it's just the picture again.
Okay.
Okay, so we think we understand the tracks. So come back to Loof. Here's Loof taking a break.
Yep.
Unfortunately, Loof's no longer with us, but I think she was a very good scent dog.
Yeah.
She gave us this report. It's been sitting dormant, and I'm hoping it'll help solve the case.
Yep. She looks like a good doggy. So I like Brutus too. I think Brutus is a good doggy.
Yep. I think that's some of the only evidence that you can trust 100%.
Right, because they don't have any interest in trying to lie or adjust the narrative or anything like that. They're just going to sniff and it's there or it's not. That's it. Right? So yeah, dogs are very trustworthy because they have no interest in trying to deceive anybody.
No, so they just want to go do their exercise, get a reward, and take a nap.
Yeah. All right.
I think
so is there one more page here? Let's see. Just remember, go find Magilla 39 on Twitter, on Reddit. There you have it. So and it's Magilla 39 on Twitter as well, right?
No, I don't use a Twitter account.
Oh, you're not on Twitter. Oh, okay. Sorry, folks.
Yeah, I pretty much stick to TikTok Manitowoc.
All right. Well, we'll have to work on him, folks. We'll get him over on Twitter, where all the other cool redditors are too. So no, I'm just messing with you.
I'm just not cool, you know.
Oh, it's all right. Yeah. I'm just kidding, though. No, but it's good. I mean, you're talking about some stuff here that I think would be of interest to the people on Twitter. Um, you know, not everybody goes to Reddit, so that's why I say you got some good content here. So, but we'll help you get it out there for sure. Um, you know, that's all the slides for today, folks. This is part one of it. We're going to be having Magilla 39 back. I want to go ahead and give you a huge thanks. This is a lot of work you did, a lot of time that you devoted to it. And, you know, it may have been long, but it was all very, very interesting. So I want to say thank you very much.
Well, thank you guys. It's been a pleasure working with you guys.
Mm-hmm. And I know everybody out there has been very appreciative. The chat has just been hopping the whole time. Everybody's very interested in what we were presenting here today. So, just look forward to it, folks. We got 4 more segments with Magilla. I think we'll go ahead and just do them on consecutive Sundays, kind of like we did today. Is the first part. We'll do the next part maybe next Sunday. Is that okay with you guys? Does that sound good with you guys?
Absolutely fine for me. This is brilliant. I can just sit here and watch. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask Magilla about the scent transfer. So really, basically, what you're saying is that it might be all of the things that you mentioned that caused the scent transfer. There are so many possible causes of scent being transferred to presumably Ryan. Is that right?
Well, it's from things in Teresa's house to the shoes.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's either Teresa's scent getting on Ryan and Scott, or it's Ryan's scent getting on the shoes, or Scott's scent getting on the shoes, or Mila's scent getting on both.
Yeah.
All those things can happen at the same time. It would have been the exact same result as the shoes would have contained unique smells for the dog to track that people staying in that house would have laid down.
Yeah, I must admit, I'm familiar from making Murder 2 with all those maps of all the tracks, and the fact that you've managed to figure out what was going on with them all. I mean, I'm with everybody here in the chat. I think we're just amazed at the work you've done. That's absolutely brilliant.
Well, thank you. And I think next time I might bring myself a pint of Guinness.
See what I mean? Watching him drink. Yeah, see, there you go.
You never saw me drink.
Are you sure about that? Before we went live? They may not have seen you drink. But anyway. Oh, you were yeah. I noticed you blacked out a few times. And I didn't mean from the alcohol, but I meant your video. Anyway. All right, so we get a little goofy, Magilla. So hopefully you don't mind that, but you know.
No problem.
Certainly, I would like to sort of thank Magilla for reaching out and getting in touch with me. And when you said we need to cover this thing, immediately I thought, well, let's do this with the dude, because he's good at doing this presenting and putting all the slides together, way beyond me. So thank you.
It's brilliant job. Yeah, brilliant job.
Yeah, thank you, Magilla, and thank you, dude, begrudgingly.
Yeah, you're all welcome. You're all very welcome.
Thanks.
I'm happy to help. This compiling of information get out there and be heard by more people. So I'm absolutely on board with that, and it's just brilliant work by Magilla. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, I mean, it just helps to explain so much more, doesn't it? It gives us so much more information.
People understanding how these dogs work.
Yeah.
And how I mean, that's a huge part of this. I think helping inform people about that is a huge part of this. So I imagine we're going to get a lot more useful information in the next 4 parts. So,
well, I mean, certainly I've been privy to some of the other articles that Magilla's done, and they are very, very interesting, aren't they?
Yeah.
So everybody check out the Reddit channel.
Absolutely, yeah. So yeah, and Blinda's been posting the Reddit links over here in the live chat and all that sort of stuff. You guys can head over to the Cozy Wrecking Crew Discord. Discord community. The Reddit posts will be there. We actually have an entire room where all the new Reddit posts, as soon as they appear, are posted in a room inside of the Erekose Wrecking Crew Discord. So that's a place you can go to find the most recent Reddit posts if you guys are looking. But anyway, but yeah, take a look at Magilla because, you know, this is brilliant stuff. And like I said, I'm happy to help facilitate getting this information out to more people. I mean, it's
and
but
also,
but I want to give Magilla his credit because he's done a hell of a job.
And also, it's, what's really nice is the fact that yes, you can go and read it, but when you've got the author actually telling us all about it, you know, and presenting it, that it, you know, for some of us, yes, you can just read it and it's there, but for a lot of us, we need to be able to read it, we need to see it, we need to hear it, then it all makes sense.
For some people out there, for the people that are really, really staunch supporters and researchers, some of their they see some of their Redditors are almost like a celebrity to them. You know what I mean? It's for some people, it's a little like that. So they love being able to hear from their favorite Redditors. So every chance or opportunity I get to get one of these Redditors on, I love to jump at it. Obviously, TikTok Manitowoc was very entertaining during Mammothon. Where he basically, as soon as I got on the phone with him, he was like, I'm going to have to ask everybody who's not over the age of 15 to leave the room. And so we even know that these Redditors have a bit of a sense of humor. But not only that, they're brilliant. And this in particular is quite brilliant. So congratulations, Magilla, on some very fascinating work and putting it together in a way that's easily digestible for people.
Well, thank you, guys.
All righty. You guys want to say goodbye to everybody? Because we still got about 60 people out there. So go ahead and say goodbye on our way out.
Well, I'll say cheerio, and I'll go and watch the Super Bowl. And my money's on the Kansas City.
Yeah. How about you, Magilla?
I'm rooting for Kansas City also.
Kansas City. I think Kansas City's going to take it because they shut down that monster in Tennessee. And if San Francisco can't run the ball, it's going to be difficult for them to pass. So I think KC's got the edge as well. So,
but what do we know? We know plenty about making a murder, but what do we know about football? Eh? And we know a lot more thanks to Magilla.
Sorry, Ruse Gatone. I'm sorry if I'm Gatoni. Sorry if I'm butchering that, but you look at yesterday's video. Did a whole hour-long video talking about doing Mammothon again. So go ahead and have a look at that video. You can email me. There's a various number of things you can do. We are getting ready to plan Mammothon again. We are putting that together. But this time we're gonna involve more platforms, more channels. It's gonna be a lot more fun. Hopefully, we're gonna keep it a lot more fresh. So go ahead and listen to yesterday's video. And I laid out a lot of the kind of groundwork for what we're kind of planning for Mammothon 2. So that'll help you and answer a lot of your questions, I think. So check that out.
Seriously, Mammothon again?
Yes. Except this time, instead of having 4 people, Paul, we're going to have probably 10 or 12 people that are going to be able to do it. So we're not all going to be like screwing up our sleep cycles to be able to hit our next segment and all that sort of stuff. So it'll be a lot, less stressful this time. You know what I mean? So.
That'll be good.
But hey, it was very gratifying though, wasn't it? When we were done and that weekend was done and we had raised all that money for Stephen and Brendan and I mean, it was a good feeling, dude.
Yeah. It would have been nice if it had been stuck to 24 hours and then somebody decided to make it 48, but yeah.
Oh, you keep blaming me for that. You keep blaming me for that. I don't, yeah. Okay, anyways, whatever. I'll take the blame because it was a brilliant success. So I'll take that blame all day long and twice on Sunday. So, and which is today. So anyways.
It's goodbye for me.
And it's goodbye from Magilla. He hasn't gotten to play this game with us yet, so he doesn't know. And that's goodbye from them, folks. And we'll see you. Thank you for being here, everybody. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Magilla and Paul.
Cheers.